Hey there, Edgar community. We are getting ready to go into the holiday season with American Thanksgiving coming up this week. So I wanted to jump on today to go over a few things and to really get you started thinking about your 2019 strategy for you to keep your followers interested and engaged with your brand. And that is, to start here, how you can make sure your holidays are stress-free and how your social media strategy is foolproof for the upcoming year. And that's going to start with having an evergreen and omni strategy when it comes to distributing those evergreen content posts on social media. Now, an omni-channel approach strategy is something we're going to touch on a lot during this Facebook Live, and that is one that doesn't happen overnight. This is something that I encourage you to start right away so you can start building your audience. Be patient and reap the rewards of having a long-term branding strategy to convert some loyal followers into customers in the new year. And good branding is so important online these days. And there's so much content out there, as we talk about a lot. And you put so much time and effort into your content that you want to make sure it gets in front of your followers where and when they like to consume it. And when you really think about it, that's why multiple social channels actually exist, because people do like to consume content in different forms at different times. And you need to make sure you're catering all of this value you're offering your followers to their preferred network. So if you have not yet, make sure that you have set up a strategy to learn how to get your content out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. MeetEdgar has some really great specific guides for each of those networks. If you need those, go ahead and Google it. I'm sure they'll come up, or email support@meetedgar.com and we can send them to you. You know, this strategy will really help you cover all the demographics in your audience, getting all the attention to your valuable content, and make sure the time and effort that you're putting into this can pay off. And we want you to start paying attention as you start to develop an omni-channel approach to marketing when it comes to social media and your funnels, because you need to know what's working and you need to start testing it. And the more information you can get from each of these channels, the more likely it'll be that you can triangulate this and get a really strong approach to developing who and why and what your customers' pain points are, so you can speak directly to them in that evergreen content you're creating. So you can see these two subjects go hand in hand together. And I'm so excited to dive in now and talk a little bit about this. So if you're focusing on what's working, go back, look at what your 2018 strategy produced, and let's see how you can get even more valuable in 2019. The main reason that this works so well is you'll never have to start from square one when you focus on what evergreen posts in 2018 worked well. It's not going to produce more work, and they'll still have so much great relevance for your followers that you'll be able to then spend more time creating this that's speaking to the topics they are interested in. And this is really one of the most important parts of having a solid strategy in place when it comes to your content. It's that content that isn't necessarily tied to a specific trend or tied to a specific time in life. And that's why it's going to be meaningful for your readers to get in there and consume over and over again. And it's also why it's referred to as evergreen content. It is an extremely powerful tool for bringing traffic to your page. And the good news, really, when it comes to evergreen content, is that it is no different than creating your other content. It's just that it's going to get more value out of it. And content creation is more important than ever these days. And the way you can hook your followers and grab their attention is making sure your content is optimized to this evergreen strategy. So if you're just sending out one good post and you're just having people go to it one time, you're not going to get the value your content deserves. And this value to get people there is all going to start with having a solid headline. If you go over and you go to our YouTube channel, we have some great webinars there on creating and brainstorming headlines. So I encourage you to check those out. But this strategy really comes from the fact that so many people really consume social media based on the headlines they see, and they share content based on the headlines more than actually engaging with and reading that content. So make sure you're getting out there and actually considering what kind of emotionally driven words you can add to your headlines. Get these real strong for the evergreen content you created in 2019. So you can try repurposing it in 2018. So you can try repurposing it in 2019 with a different headline, grabbing people's attention who might not have got that value the first time. So once you have some really solid headlines set up for your existing content, let's jump into some techniques for creating new content going into 2019. I want you to start your brainstorming here with asking yourself, what am I an expert in? When we're making our marketing topics and we're creating our blog calendars, some questions around what you're an expert in are really important because you want to make sure that you're seen as a thought leader in your industry and people know when they need to know something about your niche, you are the go-to person. So start brainstorming not only what you're an expert in, but how you can add your unique voice to these topics. Some great questions around this are, what information gaps are existing today in that space? And how can you and your voice fill them? And what value will your target audience get if you are starting to fill these gaps? Are you going into this in a way that you're going to be credible and engaging time after time when people want to continuously learn about your topic? So identify what you're an expert in, start broad, and start to brainstorm some cool new contents as you're developing your blogging calendar for 2019. Other great things to remember about this is, evergreen content doesn't necessarily only have to be related to your niche. Things that are really great are thinking of, general interest topics, certain topics like healthy eating, productiveness, efficiency at work, sports teams, travel. All of these things are evergreen because people are always interested in consuming content around these areas. So as you're starting to think not only what you're an expert in, start to think what else is evergreen in the world, like healthy eating, like productivity, and add that in to diversify your content in 2019. For example, here at Team Edgar, we are experts in digital marketing, and that includes social media strategy, online advertising, small business strategy, content creation, you name it, anything that goes in the sphere of digital marketing. You get the idea here. So we want you to start thinking big picture on what you're an expert in. Then you can try to start to get those big picture items and really get those blog topics centered around them. You want to start thinking about stuff like 101 content. It is always going to be a really great evergreen content. Tool tips and rules for success. These things are always going to be really great hooks to get your readers in and to get them to continue to consume your content. And when you write these down and you're starting to brainstorm topics, make sure that you're also thinking about your past posts from 2018 and how those can serve as backlinks in your new blog topics for 2019. You want to keep your readers hooked and you want them to have all of this information so that when they're looking through your new 2019 blog posts, they might be thinking, tell me more about that topic. And you've already linked back to one of your older evergreen posts, giving them that really great curiosity and giving them that really great value-added content. So think about how your past 2018 blog posts can be backlinks into these new topics that you are brainstorming. Now, as you're starting to position yourself as an expert in this subject matter and as an authority in your field, you want to start to really contribute all of these knowledge bombs and all of these gems of content that you're creating so that your community can really make sure that they're getting to know you as a person too. So as you're creating more and more content and more evergreen content, make sure you're distributing it in a personal way. Tell people why you wrote this. Have your status updates shine through more than just the headline so that people can get to know not only your content, but can get to know you, because that is definitely the trend we're seeing when it comes to marketing in 2019. Other things that content really does is it helps to nurture people to get them to know your brand if they're not quite ready to buy yet. We talk about this concept that it takes about 7 touch points for someone to really get loyal with a brand. And if you're not nurturing people who aren't quite ready to buy yet, you might be losing potential customers along the way. Now, this does not mean that you're ignoring all of those other customers ready to buy. It just means you're setting up systems and funnels to make sure you are speaking right to the story of each of your followers. So I suggest when you're doing this, that you're starting to gain trust of people by not selling directly to them, but nurturing them with your evergreen content. And it makes that sale later on that much more elegant. Now, your content does take a ton of time to create. We recognize that here as content creators at MeetEdgar. And that's why writing this evergreen content is so ideal. And it's going to last forever, so you can reshare it in these funnels you create, and you can really nurture with content that you've already had, and you can kind of repurpose it on each channel. So as we go into this, when we're thinking about how it's going to fit in with your overall marketing strategy, I want you to bring your emails into this omni-channel approach we started talking about too. It's not just your social media marketing. It's not just your paid advertising. It's your email nurture campaigns that can really speak to your followers on the most personal level when it comes right into their inbox. So of course it needs to match your brand voice. Of course it needs to do all of these other things that you've set up already. But what you can start doing is thinking how conversationally you speak on social media to your followers and using those tactics in your emails as well. I want you to start writing really conversationally in your emails because that is what's going to get people to really trust your brand, to feel like they're having a conversation, to feel like you're someone who's an expert they want to hang out with and learn from. And a conversational tone can really help to do that, not only on social media, but in this omni-channel approach when you're thinking about your email marketing, how it's supporting your social media strategy. You know, another way to think about this as I'm talking here is if people are in the buying journey and they have this conversation with each other too. So it's great to add user-generated content in as evergreen content. So think about the ways you can get your testimonials to sound really evergreen, how you can send those out not only on social media, but also to your email subscriber lists. And as you're starting to get more conversational, do things like read your status updates and emails out loud and ask yourself, would this sound awkward in a conversation with someone? If the answer is yes, try to rework it. People are really stressed out these days with the amount that they have to keep up with online. So if you can make it more conversational where they don't have to waste brain space in trying to decode your academic language or anything like that, it's going to be really appreciated by them, maybe on a subconscious level even, but make sure you're trying to think of the person reading it, not necessarily as an academic, but just as someone you're having a conversation with. So cool. So we've covered blog post content. We've covered a lot about evergreen content so far, but I would be remiss to stop here with just words. Because really, as we've seen and as we've talked about a lot, video content it can be evergreen as well. And video content is where trends seem to be going for marketers these days. Your videos are so great for making them evergreen. And one thing I really like to suggest is trying to do this live. Now, I know you may be saying here, hey, Megan, I thought this was evergreen content. Live doesn't seem like something can be repurposed all the time because, hey, it's live. I hear you guys out there. But as you're thinking about creating lives like this one here, think about how this could offer value over and over on your other channels. You can tweet something, letting your followers know, hey, come over to our Facebook. We're doing a live, doing a little cross promotion there. You can use this video and download it and upload it to your YouTube channel or to your Instagram stories to hook people in where they want to consume your content. So if you're getting started on lives, it's a really cool thing. Once you're done, you can actually click the timestamp on your live video. And there'll be a drop-down menu in the upper, left-hand corner that's going to have 3 dots on it. And if you click this menu, it's going to give you the option to download the video. So from here, you can actually use this in your emails. You can use this on your YouTube channel, as I mentioned, and get a lot more use out of it. So it's not just a one-time live video. So start thinking about some topics that can be really evergreen when you're producing your video content for 2019. And stick with me here a little bit as we go through this, because I want to go ahead and touch on what we just did for blog posts in the fact that videos can be added to your email marketing strategy. Why I love this system so much is because you can actually then gain someone's trust that much faster and cut down your marketing in your emails, the length of them, the number you're sending out, and not feel so spammy in people's inboxes. So the reason this works really well is because that authenticity comes across so much better in video when you're having that eye connection with someone, when they can hear your voice, and when they can see that human side, that there are people behind this business who care about producing a really great product for you. So think about using Facebook Live as an evergreen content and how that can actually fit in with your email marketing strategy to maybe even cut down on a few of your campaigns so that people aren't having to read so much to gain that know, like, trust factor with you, but can get it that much sooner when they see your face and they meet you over the screen. So I love this evergreen video content approach. And I think you can kind of think about taking 5 minutes today as your Edgar challenge of coming up with one video you can do. It can be as short as 2 minutes that you can do live really quickly by the end of the week. I would love for you guys to go ahead and tweet us at MeetEdgar.com with the hashtag Edgar challenge so we can really make sure that we are supporting each other in this evergreen content journey. And I also want to get a little pro tip from Neil Patel out there. And that is that it's really great for behind the scenes content. So he's started producing Facebook videos pretty much every day and has stopped speaking at conferences, he says, because this is an almost more intimate way of meeting people these days. You can still have those discussions. You can still start to chat with people in the comments section of your video, give people some really valuable questions to put out there so they can start thinking about it. There are marketers all over testing this and seeing that it works. So get out there and see who in your industry is making videos and how it's working for them so you can add your own voice in. So as we go along for here too, don't forget about video content and partnership strategies. It's pretty easy to think about how you can guest post and get in front of other brands' audiences when it comes to blogging, but video can do the same thing too. Another thing that we like to consider is, if you don't have a lot of stuff to talk about right now, it can be cool to talk about other products you use, other things your team likes. For example, here at MeetEdgar, we just did a really cool blog post about all of our favorite businesses in our communities for Small Business Saturday. This isn't necessarily something that's related to marketing, but it's a great way that we can go ahead and share some behind the scenes content and get in front of new businesses' eyes. So you can do this with video too. If you start talking about your favorite tools, about your favorite productivity tips, about your favorite people online, and then share the video with them. And it's likely they'll share it on their own networks or in their blog at some point, getting your brand in front of their audience's eyes. All right, so let's get into a few more action items as we do start to wrap up here. So you guys can join in the Edgar challenge on Twitter and really start to see some great success in 2019. So if you're wondering how to identify your evergreen blog posts as you're going into this, I want you to start asking yourself, if I wrote a blog post so good, would I want to share it forever, time and time again? And that's what's going to really be the identifying factor of an evergreen blog post. So ask yourself, if I read this again next year, is it still going to make sense? That's an evergreen blog post that you can identify. And if the answer is yes, mark it somewhere as evergreen and keep a list of this so you can link back to it, so you can reshare it, and so that you can stay organized in your content strategy. And as you start to do this, sometimes as you're looking through your past blog posts, you can identify ones that are almost evergreen. And why this is really cool is because if it's only slightly outdated, you can make a few tweaks here and there on it, and you can actually go ahead and reinvent this in a way that it can be evergreen for the coming year. So if you have some 2018 posts that just might need a few tweaks, go ahead and do it and then identify that as an evergreen blog post. It takes about 15 minutes probably to read most of your blog posts. That's the typical average length. And it's a lot faster to just make those tweaks than to create whole new content. And it's likely your followers haven't seen every single blog post you've put out online. So taking the time to do this is a really great way, again, to connect and get your content in front of the most people. And even if it's not 100% relevant in the evergreen content sphere anymore, think how you can use it still as evergreen content to tell a story, to get that kind of origin story going. So last week, we talked a lot about storytelling in our strategy. And one of the things I mentioned was how important the origin story is, because people want to know where your business came from. Think of things like Steve Jobs. He always spoke about how he started Apple in his garage. People love that origin story, kind of from zero to hero. So your older blog posts, even if they're not 100% relevant anymore, can kind of still be shared as evergreen posts if you're putting them on social media and you're telling people, hey, I wrote this way back when. This was my thought process then. This is why I started this company. And I'd love to just get kind of this origin story going. So check out your older posts and how you can tell your story of your brand through them by reposting them, and you're still getting that great traffic to your blog. So as you do start to create this for your service or for your product, the origin story is going to really provide a compelling glimpse of the behind the scenes that goes on in your industry that few readers can really resist. They like getting that sort of, oh, no one else knows this kind of secret content out there. So you can do a lot with blog posts that might not be 100% evergreen. So think about ways you can get creative with that. And I'd also love for you to start sharing in your origin stories, your successes and your failures. So this really is something that I'd encourage you to do at least once if you've never shared a failure of your business before, because too many of your followers probably see successful businesses as just always being successful. But if we can tell some of our struggles and let people learn from our past mistakes, it creates so much goodwill and gratitude online that you'll see it come back to your company and business tenfold. All right, so action item number 3 here is to remember preventing your content from getting buried in this long list of social media updates is going to be something you have to do to future-proof your strategy coming up. So don't assume that because you've launched a product or that you've sent a post out that the cyber into the internet, that everyone has already seen it. Don't get shy about your evergreen content. Here at Edgar, we repost some of our more value-added posts once a month because we know people don't always have the time to read it when they see it the first time, or we know people don't always have the time to engage with it. But if it comes up again when they do, they'll be that much more grateful. So remember, you see everything you post online, but your followers don't. So don't get shy about repurposing that content. So join the hashtag Edgar challenge and go ahead and start to repost some of your more popular posts. Identify them in your Google Analytics, see which ones people are really going to and spending the most time on, and use those as kind of the ones you're repurposing mostly. And you can figure out really creative ways to repackage and distribute this content online too. So this is kind of really helpful when it comes to making sure you're getting in front of people and you're experimenting with times to post. So start experimenting with posting that evergreen post in the morning versus the evening. People's consumption habits are so different when they have time to engage with content. So it's likely you're not going to go ahead and reach the same audience every time. So as you're starting to do this too, I suggest making sure that after you write your updates and status updates and send them out, in that spreadsheet or in the MeetEdgar library, you're always taking time to audit at least once a quarter. You know, keeping track of your evergreen content, keeping track of what's doing well, where, when, how is going to be what a successful social media strategy is all about. You know, for example, here at Edgar, I started to share how we repost some of our strongest content. And essentially what we do is we create categories in MeetEdgar, our social media scheduling tool, and we're able to shift posts from category to category as we start to learn the ones and identify the ones that are doing really well. So we'll have a category called like newer blog posts, and then we'll have a category called evergreen blog posts. The first category, that newer one, is the first one where all of those updates for that recent content is going into. And then we put those categories on the schedule more often. So our fresh content can get out, people can see it, we can drive a lot of content to that fresh content. The second category, that evergreen category, is going to be one that we have shifted the newer posts into, and we're sharing a little less often, but we still want to get out on our social networks. Every few weeks, we go in and we move content from the newer category into the evergreen one. That's going to not necessarily need to be retired, but we don't need to share it as often. So you see what I mean? Having a system makes it so much easier to start identifying your stronger blog posts and really making sure you're getting an awesome content mix out there. And when you break your posts up into categories like this, it's going to make organizing your content that much easier in the long run too. So make sure if you haven't done this in 2018 that you make it a priority coming up and you really hold yourself accountable so that year after year, as I was mentioning at the very beginning, it is about the long game when it comes to marketing. You are able to get some really great success going on. So take a look at your brainstorming exercises, take a look at the content you already have, and set out that strategy. Because remember, you are writing topics and you are writing awesome value and you are brainstorming headlines so that your followers know who you are. So don't be shy about sharing it to get your followers to know your story and to get the success that they deserve from your product or service. And I don't want you to worry too much about if they're evergreen or not when you're starting to get your blog topic categories going on. This can come later, as the brainstorming section of creating evergreen content really comes into play when you can be a little bit more free-flowing and you can actually have the goal of saying, you know, I need to generate as many ideas as I can in my time frame that I'm brainstorming out content creation. And from there, it's just getting started. Start with that evergreen approach in mind. Start making sure that it's going to be repurposable in 2019 when you're actually getting your topics ready. So brainstorming is a little more free-flowing. Don't worry too much about it. Remember, start big, then you can take it and niche it down a little bit to really see which topics are going to fit with an evergreen strategy. Guys, thank you so much for joining today. As we're going into the holiday season, I know it is a little bit busy out there. So I really appreciate you joining in. And please join the hashtag Edgar Challenge on Twitter. Our handle is at MeetEdgar.com. And let us know when you've gone in and created one video that's going to be Evergreen related, when you've gone in and done an audit of your 2018 content to make sure your 2019 content is ready to go. And last but not least, when you have set up an omni-channel approach and started experimenting on all the major networks. Please, please, please let us know if you do have any questions in the comments below or by emailing support@meetedgar.com. And I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.